Number 4. USS Independence. At a depth of 2,600 feet, 30 miles from the coast of San Francisco, California, lies the underwater grave of a famous American aircraft carrier named the Independence. The USS Independence was the first of a new class of carriers created from converted cruiser hulls. It was built in 1942 in New Jersey with speed in mind. The modern carrier started service as a ship in the middle of World War II in January 1943. The Independence then joined the USS Essex and the USS Yorktown for a deadly attack on Marcus Island immediately after landing in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii in July 1943. Later, the ship took part in the assaults on Okinawa, Tarawa, Luzon, and Rabaul. As the war came to an end, Operation Magic Carpet saw the Independence bring veterans from the Pacific Front home safe. It was honored for destroying the Japanese battleship Musashi during the Battle of the Philippines and was awarded 8 battle stars for its service. The vessel served as a target ship for Operation Crossroads atomic bomb testing at Bikini Atoll in the Marshall Islands before getting decommissioned in August 1946. The Independence was less than half a mile away from Ground Zero on July 1st and July 25, 1946. It was severely burned, heated, and exposed to radiation, but managed to avoid sinking, for now at least. The destroyed ship was then hauled by the U.S. Navy back to San Francisco for cleaning and repairs. But on the way, it was destroyed off the coast of San Francisco in 1951, and she met her watery demise. 64 years later, in March 2015, the Independence's crash site was officially located by the Naval History and Heritage Command, Ocean Exploration and Research, and Office of National Marine Sanctuaries. In order to create a 3D sonar scan of the wreck, scientists used the Echo Ranger autonomous underwater vehicle to map out the area. They were surprised to find the Independence remarkably undamaged, with what seemed to be a plane still sitting in the front aircraft elevator hatch opening. Number 3. USS Tang. On the night of October 24, 1944, a huge convoy of Japanese tankers and transports were being shadowed by a U.S. Navy submarine called the USS Tang in the Taiwan Strait. As Tang cruised on the surface, its crew chose 3 targets to assault. Tang was, by this time, on its 6th war patrol. For each target, it launched 2 torpedoes. The sub managed to sink one and damage the other. The abrupt explosion of a third vessel, a destroyer that has sped up to engage Tang, may have been caused by one of Tang's stray torpedoes or by friendly fire from other Japanese ships nearby. Tang doubled back to destroy the damaged tanker after the initial blaze with the final 2 torpedoes it had. It launched its last shot at 2:30 a.m., but something went wrong. As it rotated to face Tang, the torpedo suddenly broke the surface. The bomb hit Tang's torpedo room 20 seconds later. The most productive submarine in U.S. Navy history met a terrible and undeserving demise in this freak accident. As a diesel-electric submarine of the Balao class with 87 crew members and a torpedo armament of 24, USS Tang was first launched in 1943. The ship's commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander Richard O'Kane, had previously served as the executive officer of the incredibly successful USS Wahoo on 5 combat patrols and would soon add more victories to his repertoire. With just 2 years remaining in the conflict, Tang would end up with the finest record of any U.S. submarine before it. Tang sank 6 Japanese ships totaling 18,000 tons of commerce on its first combat patrol off the Caroline and Mariana Islands, with 16 of its 24 torpedoes hitting their targets spot on. The area around Palau, the Philippines, and the Japanese naval base at Truk were the primary focus of its second combat patrol. The sub saved 22 U.S. Navy airmen who were shot down during strikes on Truk, despite not sinking any actual ships. Tang's 5th and last war patrol took place in the Taiwan Strait, an immensely crucial maritime route linking Japan to the rest of its empire. O'Kane had the choice to accompany 3 other U.S. attack submarines in a bigger strike group, but he chose to go it alone. Overall, it was a successful start for the patrol. On October 10, 1943, Tang torpedoed 2 cargo ships. Nearly 2 weeks later, the vessel stumbled onto a massive convoy of 5 ships with multiple destroyer escorts. Tang rushed into the convoy on October 23, 1943, and fired torpedoes in all directions, sinking and damaging a number of ships in the process. The sub also made evasive maneuvers in response to 2 Japanese boats trying to ram it, forcing them to crash into one another, and it launched 4 torpedoes from its stern, sinking both of them while retreating. It found yet another sizable convoy the next morning and followed it until later that evening, when it launched its last assault. The final torpedo it fired was a Mark 18 Electric, a notoriously problematic American version of the German G7E. Its turning was caused by a problem that that has still not been identified and probably never will be. Only about 15 seconds remained until impact when Tang learned the torpedo was heading towards it. O'Kane instantly gave the command to move forward at maximum emergency power, but it was already too late. The Tang's empty torpedo room was struck by the 570-pound warhead and exploded. The crew, which was made up of 87 people, was reduced by half immediately. Tank's stern portion sank as the majority of the rear compartments rapidly started flooding. The submarine was longer than the depth of the sea, and the buoyancy of the unflooded compartments held the bow above the water's surface. 3 of the 9 men on the bridge at the time were successful in swimming to the top. Only one officer was able to shut the hatch after getting out of the conning tower. Tang ultimately sank and landed 180 feet below the surface of the water. In the forward torpedo room, there were about 30 men left stranded. Before trying to flee, they burned important documents and were attacked by Japanese depth charges. It was the first time a breathing apparatus known as the Momsen lung was utilized during conflict, and it was also the first time survivors of a submerged U.S. submarine were rescued without help from the surface. Only 8 of the 13 men who managed to escape reached the water's surface, and only 5 lived. On the morning of October 25, 1943, a Japanese ship rescued 9 sailors, including O'Kane. The survivors from the ships Tang had sunk the night before were also on board the frigate and beat the rescued sub-survivors. They were later sent to the Funa prisoners of war camp on Honshu, where they were detained in solitary confinement, tortured, and interrogated until getting released after the war. The most successful U.S. submarine in history, both in terms of the quantity of ships sunk and overall tonnage, was Tang, which is credited with sinking about 33 enemy ships with a combined 116,454 tons. It was awarded 4 battle stars, 2 Presidential Unit citations, and the Medal of Honor for its commanding officer as rewards for its service. Hey there, real quick, if you're new to the channel, welcome. What kind of videos would you like to see more of on American Eye? Let us know in the comments below and hit subscribe while you're at it. Number 2. The Bismarck. It was only in service for a little over a year, but during that time, this battleship terrorized the Allied forces at sea almost every day. The German Kriegsmarine's most dreaded battleship, the Bismarck, was also its largest, stretching 820 feet in length. In spite of its overwhelming presence, it would only sink 1 ship in conflict. What exactly made the Bismarck so well known then? To begin, it was a ship that represented Germany's rebirth from the ashes of World War I. After losing in 1918, Germany was told to disarm. This included a drastic decrease in its Navy's power, which went from over 40 ships to less than 20. They were also limited to producing just a few new ships in order to replace outdated ones. This would change in the middle of the 1930s when Adolf Hitler's Nazi regime took control of Germany. The vessel's quickness was another factor. The Bismarck had a top speed of over 35 miles per hour. It was unnerving to consider facing this ship in open waters because of its remarkable maneuvering ability for a ship of its weight. As one of the first 2 ships the Nazis ordered to be built, the Bismarck marked the founding of the Kriegsmarine and the start of a new era. Otto von Bismarck, a German leader who united the nation in 1871, gave it its name. The Nazis thought the ship bearing Otto's name would have the same impact on how the world saw Germany at the time. The British Royal Navy kept a watchful eye on the Bismarck's development. Britain largely relied on commercial ships to transport food, munitions, and weaponry. It was scared that Britain might be forced to surrender if a strong and re-energized Kriegsmarine could routinely destroy their supply ships. In the spring of 1941, after completing its speed testing, Bismarck would set out to face off against some of the best Royal Navy vessels out there. It headed out to the Atlantic with her companion, the Prince Eugene, to attack a 16-ship British supply fleet. But battleships and cruisers proved too strong a defense. The Bismarck's destructive firepower still remained a threat, though. After 6 days of searching by a dozen Royal Navy ships, HMS Hood, the pride of the Royal Navy, engaged fire with the Bismarck on May 24th. The sole conflict between the 2 big hitters would take place during the Battle of the Denmark Strait. The ship with the more effective armor would prevail, though, since both possessed similar firepower. The main ammo magazine of the Hood was pierced by a shell just a few minutes into the exchange. Only 3 of the 1,400 crew members on board the Hood survived the enormous explosion that came out of this. The sinking of the Hood had a significant impact on both sides' propaganda. Germany could brag about sinking the ship that had been hailed for over 20 years as the most powerful vessel in the world. There was a sense of, and then a need for, vengeance in Britain. Bismarck needs to be destroyed was the ultimate message. The Bismarck started its final day at sea on May 26th. Torpedoes thrown by Swordfish planes damaged the rudder, triggering a combination of aerial and naval strikes. As a result, it began to circle incessantly. British and Polish ships kept launching torpedoes, badly damaging the ship while the crew frantically tried to fix the issue. The Royal Navy then advanced for for the kill the next morning. Battleships HMS Rodney and HMS George V started firing at 8:47 a.m. The two would gradually destroy the Bismarck's main weapon compartments. All 4 of the guns had been rendered inoperable by 9:31 a.m. The heavy cruisers Norfolk and Dorsetshire immediately joined HMS George V in opening fire with all their strength. By 10:40 a.m. in the end, the Bismarck sank. Almost 2,000 of the 2,200 crew members aboard died and sank along with the ship. The ocean's most dreaded ship was no longer a threat. The Royal Navy finally got revenge for the Hood's loss and dealt Nazi Germany a huge strategic and moral blow. Number 1. The Yamato. Built for the Imperial Japanese Navy a bit before World War II, Yamato was the head ship in her class of battleships. She and her sister vessel, the Musashi, were the biggest and most heavily armed battleships ever constructed, displacing close to 72,000 tons at full load and equipped with 9 18.1-inch Type 94 main cannons, the largest weapons ever installed onto a warship. Yamato, which takes its name from a historical Japanese province, was created to compete head-to-head with the United States, Japan's main Pacific foe, and its far superior battleship fleet. She was officially commissioned in late 1941, a week after the assault on Pearl Harbor, after having first been put down in 1937. She served as the combined fleet's flagship during 1942, and in June of that year, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto oversaw the fleet from her bridge during the Battle of Midway, which dealt a crushing loss for Japan. In early 1943, Musashi assumed command of the combined fleet, and Yamato spent the rest of the year responding to American threats by traveling between the key Japanese naval bases in Truk and Kura. An American submarine sank Yamato in December of 1943, creating a need for repairs in Kura, where she would also get an upgrade with more anti-aircraft weapons and radar in early 1944. Yamato was present at the Battle of the Philippine Sea in June 1944, but did not take part in any fighting. The vessel was dispatched to confront American forces occupying the Philippines during the Battle of Leyte Gulf in October 1944, and this was the only instance she ever fired her main guns against enemy targets. In the Battle of Samar, they came upon a light escort carrier group of Task Force 77 of the U.S. Navy, Taffy 3, and threatened to sink American troop transports. After getting convinced by American airstrikes that they were up against a fierce U.S. carrier fleet, the Japanese turned around. As a result of the significant shift in the balance of naval strength in the Pacific during 1944, Japan's fleet was left severely decimated and hindered by serious fuel shortages in the home islands by the start of 1945. In an effort to stop the Allied advance, Yamato was sent on a one-way mission to Okinawa in April 1945. She was instructed to beach herself and defend the island until she was destroyed in a suicide mission. U.S. submarines and planes discovered the task force south of Kyushu, and on April 7, 1945, American carrier-based bombers and torpedo bombers sank her with the deaths of a majority of the crew. Ever since they were built, Yamato and her sister Musashi have had a lasting influence on Japanese culture. Because of their size, speed, and strength, the battleships epitomized Imperial Japanese naval engineering and clearly demonstrated Japan's will and ability to protect its interests against the Western powers, particularly the U.S. Some Japanese people believed that their nation could never fall as long as Yamato could still fight because of the ship's symbolic power. Years after the war, Japan remembered Yamato in a number of ways. Her name became a symbol for the fall of the Japanese Empire, since Yamato was historically a poetic term in Japan's history. Thanks for watching. Which of these ships impressed you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.